I'm super nosy, so I asked you on Instagram and here on YouTube, what are your like beauty community, beauty brand, makeup hot takes? Things that are like maybe an unpopular opinion or something that's a little bit like shock value, and I asked you to give it to me so that I can react to them, and that's what we're gonna be doing in this video. And remember, it is okay to disagree about things. At the end of the day, makeup is just colored powder, and it's okay if we disagree on what a collection is, which brands are good, and stuff like that. But I don't think it's okay for us to disagree on facts. Opinions are opinions and facts are facts. I also don't personally love when people disagree on basic human rights. That's where I draw the line. But we are gonna get into some of these hot takes, and I have like briefly skimmed through them, and some of them are scorching hot. You did not hold back. Let's start with this one, which I feel is almost like a little bit of a hot take in the indie community, but I kind of see where this person is coming from. And this is, I feel like duo and multichromes can sometimes be overrated. Some of them are actually a bit ugly. And I've touched on this a little bit, and I do to an extent actually agree that sometimes duochromes and multichromes can make a color story or a palette more challenging than it needs to be. And I feel like we've fallen almost into this like special shade trap where brands feel like they have to have special shades in a palette for people to even want to buy it, which sometimes forces them to put duochromes or multichromes in there that actually like don't even go with the color story. And a lot of multichromes have a green shift to them, a green or a purple shift. And I've seen a lot of those going into palettes where I'm like, these don't 100% make sense. I think that having a special shade in a palette can truly make a palette go from great to absolutely spectacular. Having that extra thing, something you can pull in as like your like special trump card when you just want to bring out something exciting. But I don't think that every makeup look needs a multichrome, and I do think that sometimes we give makeup too much hype based on how they swatched, based on how they actually wear, and not all multichromes look amazing on the eyes depending on look. Sometimes a nice shimmer is just honestly the best. Also, I did film this look, speaking of makeup. I filmed this with the Drops of Fantasy. I keep forgetting. This is the new palette by Dede Signature. This look is coming real soon on my channel. Isn't it like so fun and bright? I absolutely love it. I'm going on a little bit of a lunch date with my husband after filming this, so I'm so excited that I'm wearing this. This one is interesting. The fingernail tapping on products drives me nuts. Total turn off to buying. I've actually seen this quite a lot as of late. I mean, I don't even have my nails on right now. I took my nails off and I just keep them short. I want to give them a good rest right now. But personally, that doesn't bother me unless it is taken to an absolute extreme where I'm not an ASMR kind of a person, so for me, it's just like this thing that I really don't need. It doesn't really bother me that way. Okay, maybe I should put it like this. There is a lot of things out there that I see people use very heavy words on. Like, I hate it, I detest it, like I don't want to see it, it makes me, like all these things. I don't have those feelings against stuff that really don't matter. Like, there are people out there that clearly love the fingernail tapping, otherwise it wouldn't work or people wouldn't be doing it. But I don't feel like I have a strong... My hot take on this is that I really don't care. I really don't care what people do when it comes to stuff like this. I cannot muster enough feelings about these subjects to like care about like these kind of like artistic choices that people are making with their content. There are other things that I care more about, but I will say I don't even know if this is a hot take anymore because I feel like I've seen this comment so much as of late. People just absolutely hating the fingernail tapping. I also will say that the people that are the most vocal are usually the few people that hate something. People are much more quick to comment on something when they hate it versus when they love it, which is a shame, which is why a lot of really negative content online gets more views and gets pushed out more by the algorithm. It's because it gives people a feeling, and people are much quicker to share a feeling that's negative than to share a feeling that's positive. So if you feel like your feed is getting very negative, probably will help you to comment on more positive content for a bit. This is something that I am very guilty of, and I actually 100% agree about this. PR listers forget about prices during reviews. I've thought about this a lot as of late, and I feel like I even mentioned it in at least 2 of my like kind of recent videos, where I'm just like, and this is me even before I started getting PR, because when I started my YouTube channel, I already had a big collection. I already had a vanity for my makeup. I already had a whole bunch of makeup that I of course bought myself. And I will say, even in the beginning, price didn't deter me as much as color story did. I was always kind of willing to pay extra to get something that was aesthetically pleasing or something that I felt like I was gonna like, use, enjoy. But I do think that we, at some point, when we compare stuff to each other, I feel like I sometimes forget that price is also something. So sometimes we will hold up 5 palettes and say like, this is my absolute favorite. But that palette is like $30 more than all of the other things. And I myself forget sometimes to be like, yes, this is my favorite quality-wise, but it also is by far the most expensive. If you're looking for something more affordable, what would that be? And is it $30 worth more? That's something that I need to keep in my head. And I do appreciate people like calling me and calling others out on it, because we need to remember that as well. Because for me, I've never, even when I bought the stuff myself, I've always been of the, and again, maybe that's like my privilege of like me having a full-time job when I started beauty YouTube. I've always been of the mindset, if there's something I want, I'll buy that one instead of a more affordable version that's almost as good. I would rather just buy the thing I want, the thing that's the best. I keep this in air quotes. But I do think that I myself, because that's how I feel, I forget that not everybody feels the same. So I feel like sometimes I remember to mention prices when I do reviews, but not always, and I want to be better at that. So I actually totally agree with that hot take. Oh, here it is again. Influencers don't even think about the price of something before plugging it. I do think I think about it, but I might not put as much thought into it as I probably should. Colorful makeup should not be considered unprofessional in a workspace. I do actually really agree with that. I have been very lucky to work in places, at least when I worked in a restaurant, it was a little bit more try to not wear this in a restaurant, I will say. I do think that if you worked in a more hip restaurant, or if you worked in a bar, I think anything would go. And I honestly even think today, where like, again, I'm from Sweden, where we are today in Sweden, I feel like there are very few places where you wouldn't be able to rock up in a sleeve tattoo, pink hair, and make like full makeup. There might be places where people put a comment, but I don't think that I don't think you would get like in trouble. I might be misspeaking. If anyone has a different opinion on this, please let me know. But just from what I know from Sweden and what I know from my friends who are still in Sweden. Here in the US, I've heard a lot of people say that I wish I could wear this at work, or I wish I could have this hair color at work. And I think that it might be a little bit different. And I personally don't. I 100% agree with this hot take. I don't think that my personal appearance has anything to do whether or not I'm good at a job. I'm gonna put it out there. I used to have blue hair. I used to have purple hair. You know what? I was great at my job. I was great at my job, and I don't think anyone thought different based on my hair color. But again, I don't know. I do agree. I don't think your appearance should have anything to do with whether or not you're seen as professional or like even good at your job. I don't understand putting blush on your nose. Why? Just get a little sun-kissed. I've seen a lot of people who make like blush on their nose, like their aesthetic, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I personally don't like blush on my nose because I feel like it accentuates features that I'm not really trying to accentuate in my face. I don't like the look on me. I do like bronzer on my nose though, because again, I do get like bronzed on my nose, but I don't like having a pink or like a red nose. That's not my personal preference. But when I see it on others, I'm like, I feel like we all make like artistic choices, And I will never tell anyone, if anyone has makeup that they really enjoy, I will never tell you anything other than, I love that. That looks so great. I'm so happy you love your makeup. It's when people say, my makeup doesn't feel right. What do you think I could be changing? Then you asked me for an opinion. I will give you my opinion if you asked for it. I will never give somebody unsolicited advice because, quite honestly, I think that's rude. And that's maybe my hot take. Could we just stop with that altogether? If nobody asked you for an opinion of how they can change something about how they are, how they look, how they speak, don't tell them. They really don't want to know. If they wanted to know, they'd ask you. Mainstream makeup equals garbage, but we keep buying because it's accessible and it gets views. I do disagree with this because I do think that there is a lot of things that mainstream makeup makes better than indie makeup is able because of accessibility to bigger and better labs, because of how much quantity they're buying. Some of these really big, honestly professional, like really great labs are not willing to work with people that don't make 10,000 of each color, which is an incredibly high amount of products to be making for an indie brand. I also do think that there are smaller labs that make better stuff than bigger labs, which is like a big reason, again, why a lot of people changed their production to China, because quite honestly, they're better at eyeshadow. I said what I said. They're better at eyeshadow, and to be able to get worse quality in higher quantities for more money made no sense to anyone. So that's the reason why people went to Italy or to China, is because they're better at that. I do think there's a lot of things that mainstream makeup makes incredibly good, and I think for me it's mainly like complexion products, because again, they're able to access formulations and labs in a way that smaller brands just aren't. I also think that there's a lot of like really good lip products from mainstream brands, like crazy good. All the eyeshadow palettes look the same after a while. I kind of agree, because I also think that that is almost like that's what's gonna happen when a lot of brands release a lot of eyeshadow palettes. Just look at ColourPop, because every palette eventually, if you release 6 palettes a year, there are only that many color combinations we can do. And eventually you're going to end up repeating yourself and releasing things that are a little bit too similar to things you have done before. And especially if you make big palettes, it's really hard to be super innovative and super creative with a color story when you have that many shades to choose from, because you either end up doing a lot of really similar palettes, a lot of rainbow palettes, or a lot of palettes where a lot of shades in the palette feel redundant, especially when you keep doing more and more and more. I think that brands that are doing smaller palettes, I'm looking at one right here, like Fantasy Cosmetica, they're probably better off because they're doing 9-pan palettes and sometimes 12-pan palettes. They have more to play with. But if you start doing 5-6 palettes a year, I still think that eventually stuff is gonna look very similar. I also think that, like, as a consumer, and I say this as someone, again, who used to be a consumer, as a consumer, we're not meant to buy everything. And that's what like reviewing makeup on social media comes in. It's a way to show you all of the options out there so that you can pick up one, two, a couple that you want. Of course, if you want to pick up more, if you're a collector, if you really love buying and collecting and using and owning makeup, that's something totally different. But I also feel like sometimes makeup brands and creators get the blame for overconsumption, but you don't have to buy all of it just because it's getting released. Sometimes just looking at somebody else using something can like scratch that itch of you wanting to play with it. Because if it's a palette where you're like, this is so beautiful, but you have something similar, or there are 3 palettes being released at the same time that you feel have maybe not the same color story, but like a similar, maybe you can watch some reviews and decide which one. It doesn't have to be all 3. I also will say that sometimes I see this palette is just like this palette, or this palette is just like that palette, and I own all of the palettes mentioned, and I'm like, I don't see it. And like people will be like a green and a red palette, and then a pink and a green palette, and they're like, they're the same. And I'm just, I'm not seeing it, but also that could be you will see more nuances and differences in a color scheme that you love. So if you love green eyeshadow, you will be like, no, these are all different. But if you don't love green eyeshadow, you only use it every now and then, you'll be like, it's a green palette. Like, who needs more than one green palette? And I feel the same about brown. When I see a palette that's all brown, I'm like, I don't need that. And then I see another palette that's all brown. I'm like, these are the same. These are the exact same palette. Even though someone who loves brown will be like, no, these are different undertones, different textures, different everything. So I think that like sometimes we do forget that. But I do get a lot of comments of people say, this palette is so similar to, and then they count up 4 palettes. And I'm like, none of these palettes are the same. I can literally, I don't even know if I can find a single dupe between the palettes, even like dupe on the eyes. Because I do feel like sometimes this dupe culture of like swatching shadows next to each other and like, look at the difference. And I'm like, well, on the eyes, you won't see that difference when it's blended out. But I also think, and this is something I talk about with my friends, maybe this is my hot take. If you look at a palette and you're like, I really shouldn't be shopping any makeup right now. And you look at a palette and you're like, this kind of reminds me of this palette that I already own. Whatever you need to do to keep yourself from buying that palette, even if the creator that you are commenting that on doesn't agree at all. They're like, no, those are 2 very different palettes. That doesn't matter, because if you found something to keep you from buying that palette when you're trying to save money, I say that's very successful, and I think that's a really great idea. This is an interesting one because I feel like the more I have been on the brand side of things, the more I've gotten some like more insight of this. Some brands don't care about international customers, but they pretend like they do. I do think that sometimes, and I say this as someone who used to live in Sweden and now I live in the US, there are some things that brands have told us, I've realized now as a brand owner myself, have told us about international orders that make 100% sense now that I have a brand, and some things that I've now realized that's not true at all. That is because I've had brands that have been like, oh no, this is the cost of shipping, that blah, 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 blah. And I've realized that's not true. And they have been jacking up the cost of shipping for stuff because some of their things are really heavy and some are not. And I've even had like drama threads written about me for calling out brands that have been low-key overcharging their customers for international shipping and telling them, hey, this isn't correct. And they went in and they changed their shipping, and somehow I still got the blame for that. But I'm like, listen, this brand was trying to overcharge you for shipping. They lowered their shipping. Why are people not happy? But people were not happy about that. But at least they lowered their shipping. I mean, that's good, because that was bananas. That was a million years ago. But I also think that sometimes, for the most part, brands are just charging for shipping what UPS, FedEx, USPS, DHL, and they are charging a lot. For me to send a package from my warehouse to Canada, it's like $40. And for a lot of countries, I've actually lowered the cost a little bit so that I actually do eat some of the cost, because I think it's just ridiculous, the charges that these shipping companies are charging us. And I'm gonna be the one to tell you, there's nothing we can do about that. Don't be mad at the brands that the shipping is expensive unless the brand's shipping is significantly different from other brands' shipping. And this is the case when I called out a brand. Significantly different from other brands' shipping. But don't compare indie brands to brands like Colourpop. Colourpop will have like free shipping, but it's because they already baked in the cost of shipping into their products. So things that are $25 could be $22, but they chose to bake in the cost of shipping into those products, and you feel like you're making money because you're like, oh my God, free shipping. But listen, you paid for shipping. One way or another, the customers are always paying for shipping. No brand is out here getting free shipping. If you get free shipping at checkout, just know and keep this in the back of your head. Trust me, you paid for that shipping. One way or another, it is always the customers paying for the shipping, because again, the brands are not out here doing like charity. Sometimes we do need to charge for the things that are being charged for us. I choose to not have free shipping on my website because I didn't want to raise the prices of my products to cover shipping. And I do try to have a retailer like in Canada to offer my products. I have a retailer in the EU to offer my products. But setting up warehouses in other countries, which some people are like, oh, the brand should have warehouses in different countries. I don't think you understand how many tens of thousands of dollars we're talking about. Brands cannot afford that. Not even big brands wants to do that. They'll have maybe one extra warehouse somewhere, but they can't have like warehouses all over the world. It's just incredibly expensive to a point where it's like, do you understand how many like orders have to happen in that country for that to be worth it? So I do think that sometimes, and I get that because I used to be international and next year I will be again, I have more knowledge now about like shipping international, what it actually is, because it is so expensive. It is so expensive. And if we don't want to pay the international shipping, we can't just force the brand to eat the cost and lose money sending stuff, or force every other customer to pay for that, for increased prices on all the products. I think a lot of brands, when they see that a market is doing really good, they try to look for a retailer in that market. So I think with international customers, I think brands are doing the best they can. But at the end of the day, I can't lose money because then I'm no longer a brand. And then I need to make money so that I can do new launches. Otherwise, I might as well just not have a brand. Let's do a couple of the ones that were on YouTube because there were some really, really interesting ones. I don't enjoy TikTok because everything is an ad. I much prefer long form content and seeing people try products for a long period of time. I talked about this in a recent video where I said that I feel like there is a value to short form content as an add-on or as an extension to long form content. Doing first impressions or demos or swatches in short form makes a lot of sense, but it only makes sense if you come back and you let people know this is how it looks, this is how it feels, this is what I think about the product after using it for a long time, which is like what I and a lot of other creators are doing in our roundup reviews or ranking our latest purchases or anything like that, where we come back and we talk about products. And I think that is like the important step that I feel is almost missing in TikTok content, where it's only the showcasing, it's only the first impression, it's only the swatches. There's never a finality to it. Like, so did the product work out for you or not? Hot take, too many beauty influencers film either too far away or too soft focused to even see the makeup in a meaningful way. I think it depends on what kind of content you do. If you are a makeup reviewer, I don't think you should use a filter on your videos. I do think though that it is important to have like good lighting so that you can, I worked really hard on my lighting and on my setup to show you like what I see right now in my monitor. What you're seeing right now is what I'm seeing in real life. These are the colors. This is how my skin is looking. This is a very, like, what you're seeing is what I'm seeing when I'm looking in the mirror. And I worked really hard on that because I feel like it's very important to show you true to color, true to texture and all of that. And when I do something where I want to show you something, I zoom in. But there are a bunch of videos where I sit like this and I do my makeup because I feel like the video is more about me chatting about something than it is about me showing you the makeup. But again, I think it depends on what kind of content are you making. I do think though that in this day and age, even if you film on your phone, you can get really sharp and nice quality to actually showcase the products. Or if you're reviewing makeup, people want to see what does the makeup look like, what does it look like going on, and how does it like look like on the skin, especially if you're talking about like complexion products like foundations and stuff. I don't even know, because people always talk about smoothing filters, and me and my friend Samantha even talked about this a while ago. We were like, how does that work? I don't even know how that works on long form. Of course I know how it works on like, you know, Instagram stories and like Snapchat back in the day, but I don't know how it works on long form. And quite honestly, I don't want to know either, but it's one of those things where I'm like, there is so much out there with tech that I just quite honestly don't have anything, I don't have any knowledge on it, but I do know good lighting and I do know good like sharp quality when it comes to video. But it's one of those things, we can also not expect someone that just started out doing videos to maybe have all of that sorted out. It's one of those things that takes time. Because if you look at some of my old videos, the audio is awful, the lighting is way off, the colors are crazy. In my old videos, I look gray. This is what I actually look like. I look gray. Indie brands should slow down the releasing schedule of launching new palettes and maybe release also other products. I understand it's hard to diversify, but I think that what keeps us coming back. For example, Nomad Cosmetics, I love their concept, but I'm tired of new palettes every 2-3 months. I think that one of the things, people say they're tired of palettes, but palettes are the thing that sells. I've only launched, as I'm filming this, I've only launched one palette, and I've launched some blushes, some brushes, and palettes are much more popular. And that is the reason why a lot of brands, they will try out different things and they realize it is not as popular and they'll just revert back to palettes. Because that is what gets people riled up. I do think though that if you have a brand and you're building a brand, I do think it's very important that when you have extra capital, you can invest it into another product, something that's a little bit more evergreen than a palette is, because palettes are not really evergreen on people's websites, but a blush or a lip product or a brush or a setting spray, that can be a little bit more evergreen. It can be something that people buy not just because it's a launch, but every now and then. Like you say, it keeps us coming back. And I think that some brands might not have thought, either they don't have the economics for it, which fair, or they haven't planned the economics for it, where they keep going from launch to launch to launch, and there's not ever any capital left at the end of those launches to invest in something where you might not make the money back instantly. Because that's how it is for me when I've launched stuff that isn't a palette. It takes a little longer to get your investment back. It sits longer in your warehouse, and you have to be okay with that. So I do understand why smaller brands are not able to do it, because not everyone can afford to invest in something that's gonna sit for a bit. Oh my God, there are so many here. Oh, how am I gonna, oh, this one is interesting because I do this. Wait, I do this. I don't like when influencers say I bought this with my own money, which is something that I say when they are trying to be relatable. Okay, let me answer it later. We all buy things with our own money. Just say you bought it. It's redundant and annoying reminder for a lot of them. Buying things for themselves is the exception, and getting gifted free stuff every day is the norm. I think influencers should disclose when they buy products. We have to disclose when we get stuff gifted, or we have to disclose if there's an affiliation. So for example, if I say affiliate code blah blah blah, I have disclosed that there is an affiliation. Whether or not I bought it with my own money is not really as important that me disclosing that there is an affiliation with this brand. I do make money if you use my code. I will say though, you are supposed to disclose if you got something in PR, gifted, or if you bought it with your own money. And I will say, for me, it's just a fun thing to say. I have never said or done anything online to appear relatable. And I think that this hunt for relatability is something that I feel like creators always get accused of not being relatable, but I can tell you right now, not a single thing that I have done online have I done in a quest to appear more relatable. I can only be me. I can only be me. There is nothing that I say or do that I do in a way to make you think that I look more relatable. Either I am relatable or I'm not. There are so many people that I follow. There's so many people I'm friends with. There are so many people that inspire me that really could not be more unrelatable to me and my lifestyle if I tried. Which to me is perfectly fine, because that's not what I'm looking for online. And I really hope that we one day would stop trying to force creators into this, you need to appear more relatable, when maybe that was never their goal. I'm just trying to be here having fun with makeup, letting you know that it's okay to wear this kind of makeup going to the grocery store. That's my goal online. I am not trying to be a relatable queen. If I appear like that to you in any situation, and if you can relate to any of the situations I'm going to, that's great. If you can't, according to me, also great. I say with my own money more as a quirk, more as like I bought this with my own money, because again, that is my own money. Even if I bought it with like the business money, I am the sole owner of my business. It is my own money. If I didn't buy it with the money, I would be able to withdraw that as a paycheck and use it for something else. So money that I invest for my business is money that I could technically just have taken out, paid some taxes, did a payroll, and just used for something else. Traveling, shoes, ice cream, all is fair games. So I do use that, but I think I use it more as like a tongue-in-cheek, like with my own money. I don't think I mean anything deeper than that. And I honestly don't think anyone else is using that as to try and be relatable either. Again, I'm speaking only for me here, so maybe I'm overstretching by saying that, but I don't mean anything by that other than I didn't get this in PR. I bought this. Here is something that I see a lot that I actually fully disagree with, and that is PR should be sent to smaller content creators and randomly to loyal consumers. They are the heart of every brand and should be rewarded. That being said, I appreciate honest reviews, but most influencers get the PR with no content promised, just wasteful. As a brand owner, and this is something, okay, let me talk about back when I was a bartender. There was a bar that I worked at, and the owner of the bar said, these people are VIP, which means that they get rewards or extra perks for being VIP. But remember, they are VIP because they spend a lot of money here. So the perks that we give them is never monetary perks because they're VIP, because they're spending money. So we want to keep them spending money, otherwise they're not VIP. And I think that that's like, brands are out here trying to sell products to consumers. This is not, unfortunately, charity. I do think though, and I 100% agree, that there should be ways to reward your loyal customers, but I don't think it should be free products. PR is public relations. That is a way of doing advertisement. That is a way of doing marketing. And marketing to someone who doesn't have a reach isn't marketing. That is just a gift. And I would love to hear actually your thoughts. How would you like, as a loyal consumer to a brand, as a loyal customer to a brand that you really like, how would you like to be rewarded other than getting the products for free? Because again, then you're no longer a loyal customer. Like, how would you like to go about that? Because I feel like we are living in a capitalistic world. Like, this is how a lot of people are paying the rent, putting food on their table, being able to stay afloat, and every product we give away, again, is money that's being spent. So when it comes to PR, that is part of the marketing budget. So again, I could be giving products to my loyal customers if I do a marketing campaign around it. Oh my God, look at me giving away free products to my loyal customers. But I'd have to make a spiel about it. I'd have to make a marketing campaign about it. I can't just do it and send it out as PR as a brand would do, like Benefit sends out PR to their PR list. They don't say anything about it. They're just expecting their PR list to show the product, and people who watch it probably get intrigued by the product. You can never do that sending it out to the customer, because even if they showed on their Instagram, what if they have 100 people following? Nobody's even going to know that that product went out, which is the point of PR. Showing the product so that people know something new is coming. This is what it looks like. Do we think it's good or not? And that's why reach is so important. And PR is this very like delicate like battle between reach. We want to find people who has a big reach, and we want to find people who actually use and showcase the product. If you send to someone who's too big and you're too small of a brand, they're not going to show it. So you don't get any benefit whatsoever. This is like one of those, like the diagrams where the circles are touching, you know? We want where the circles are touching, where you find someone with a good reach, but also will enjoy and showcase your products. And unfortunately, a customer, they're in the circle that the reach, even if they enjoy and showcase the product, nobody sees it. I say nobody as like very like. And that's why that doesn't work. PR should be sent as marketing to people that the brand think represents their brand, want like to showcase their brand, think is going to make like a hopefully positive, but at least a just representation of the product, lighting, quality, swatches, all of that, colors, and it's gonna show it so that other people see it. And again, finding that delicate balance of like someone with a reach that also will showcase the product, it is really tricky. With that being said, yes, I do think that there should definitely be, and that's why there are like rewards programs on like Ulta and stuff where you can like collect points. But I would love to hear, like, what would you think brands could do that like would make you feel appreciated as a customer? I would love to hear about that, because I don't think sending out a PR box with a new release is the answer, because then you're just losing customers. And again, it's the customers. This is a business endeavor. We're all just trying to stay afloat. I would love to hear your thoughts about that, because I see this a lot and I'm just like, I don't think that that's the answer. I think this touches a little bit on what I talked about before. We love people being relatable, then make them famous and rich and get mad when they're no longer relatable. Make it make sense. I have seen this myself with comments that I've been getting, that I liked you when you lived in Sweden, or I liked you when you were smaller, I liked you XYZ. A lot of people will say they liked me before when I was less confident, which is a weird take. I like myself now when I'm more confident and I feel better like about myself as a person. But I do see that a lot, and I think sometimes, and I've said this to friends, sometimes we get comments that are almost like, I don't like the character development of this channel, not realizing that this is my life. I didn't plan or want to move to the US. That was part of my husband's career. We kind of had to. I didn't honestly even plan to work full-time as a beauty creator. When he said he was moving to the US, I had to scramble and be like, well, I can't work with EU legislation any longer because I'm not going to be in the EU. So I had to kind of pivot and do this instead. And now that we are planning to like move back to the EU again, I'm kind of thinking like, do I want to do full-time YouTube content creation? I even talked about that in a video where maybe I'm like, maybe I'm ready to move on into something else. But people will sometimes comment on creators saying that they don't like the change that's going on in their life, not realizing that we're just here showing our life. I can't live my life in a way where my YouTube audience will like it. My life is what my life is. And this is just a mirror into my life. This isn't a pick your own adventure where you get to choose where I live, what my hair color is, what my partner is. And those things sometimes do confuse me, because we're all just like, we're doing the best we can here. And I do know personally quite a few YouTubers that just stopped uploading on YouTube because they felt like the comments were just a little bit too harsh for them to be feeling like it's worth it. This comes back to what I said before. People have to stop doing what influencers are promoting, excessive consumerism. You don't need a room full of makeup. I do agree with this. Unless this is like your hobby and having a room full of makeup makes you actually happy and you're not going into debt, you really don't need to be owning as much makeup as a beauty creator. I don't need that either. If I wasn't on YouTube, I wouldn't be having this much makeup. I have it because of what I do. And I do hope that people realize that this isn't the norm. This isn't what you should be aspiring to doing. I have this so that I can help others in their purchasing decisions. I also do love having a lot of makeup. And like I said, I had that before I started YouTube. Would I need this much? Definitely not. Definitely not. This is the same. A regular consumer of makeup, not a professional makeup reviewer, should be able to fit their collection in one drawer. I highly disagree. And I think it's very important to not put what you think is relatable, or what you think is normal, or what you think is a good idea, or what you would prefer in your own life, and putting that on everyone else. And saying that just because you're not sharing my opinion on this one thing means you're wrong and you should change. Again, my makeup collection has never fit into a drawer. I don't know if it's ever fit into a drawer, if I'm going to be honest, as an adult. I've always loved makeup. I've always had extra makeup. I did freelance as a makeup artist for a bit, but that's excluding what I had in my kit at the time. And I think that it is important to not judge others based on, because you would probably come to my house and see I have a very minimalistic view on like kitchen appliances and kitchen, like all of that. If you open my cabinets, they're not very full. I'm not going to judge you if I open your cabinets and they're full. That's a choice you made, and I am okay with my choice if you're okay with your choice. Oh, this is an interesting one because this is me. People seem to assume those of us with sparse eyebrows have them because we plucked them to death in the 90s. No, they're just like that. I just have so little eyebrow hair. Most products are useless for me. I have pretty thin hair, thin brows. I brush them up so they become a little bit more they look a little like thicker, but I have very thin eyebrows. I've always had very thin eyebrows, and this is also one of those where people say like, no, I don't pluck my eyebrows. This is what they are. I literally pluck like 1 or 2 hairs that have just gone rogue around my brows, but I don't pluck my eyebrows. I've always had thin eyebrows. I do wish I was able to grow them out, but people have told me, maybe you should try and grow out your eyebrows. Trust me when I say this is what that is. Hot take, Nomad Beauty isn't getting the same hate on their sheer lip liners like Rhode Skin did, and it's frustrating. I actually dislike the Nomad lip liners more than the Rhode Skin ones. Maybe that's my hot take. Hot take, coconut oil is better than any cleansing balm on the market. There is no makeup that can't remove faster and more gently. Coconut oil makes me break out. So for me, no. I also have another friend that also breaks out from coconut oil. So I think it depends on how your skin is. It is just too fatty for me and too hard to rinse off, even with a double cleanse. So I break out instantly. So I'd rather use hand soap to remove my makeup over coconut oil because I don't want to break out. Let's end with this one because I feel like this is an interesting one, and even every now and then I get a question about this, and I can tell you in a few words why this is something that I am not discussing on my channel. Hot take, but not aimed at anyone specific. Way too many beauty influencers avoid questions regarding their use of non-cruelty-free brands. Again, I will tell you why. People should use what they want, but many influencers avoid answering why they use non-cruelty beauty, but will gladly talk about why they don't use brands because of certain people. I'm not here to judge. I don't have anything against people who use non-cruelty for beauty. I'm just genuinely curious, especially if they have pets themselves. This is why I don't talk about non-cruelty free beauty. And I think it's because I know too much. I used to actually, my husband is in science, and I know a lot of people in science. And I used to work with laws and regulations around makeup safety, actually, back when I was in Europe. And quite honestly, the reason why I don't talk about cruelty-free beauty is because it doesn't work the people think it does. There are so many, and I talked about this in a recent video on my book channel, there's so much propaganda and like false narratives around cruelty-free beauty that quite honestly, I don't want to talk about it because it's become this just cesspit of just incorrect statements on how that actually works. Cruelty-free doesn't really 100% mean what we think it does. Test on ingredients, not necessarily on products. And also since a couple of years back, even China, and again, I feel like we're centering in on China, but there's a bunch of countries that used to force animal testing if the product got any kind of complaints on it. You don't have to test all the products that are sold in China. That is just not true. And the rule was also products sold in China, not made in China, which is why a lot of brands, for example, I know brands that started up a factory then or started producing in factories in China and sold that makeup in China to avoid it. The whole thing, because then it's made in China. Oh, that's what I was gonna say. I lost my thread. That you are now able to use lab created tissue if you want to test something specific. Usually it's like an ingredient and not necessarily a product. And that has been something that's been used in the EU for a really long time, and you had to use that, and you couldn't use animals. In China, they did not approve of that, but now since I think a year or two back, they have said that they do approve of testing made on lab-made tissue instead of animal testing, which means that a lot of the things that are being spread right now, and again, I'm gonna get comments on this video saying stuff that just factually isn't true. I can tell you that right now. I can tell you right now there's going to be comments on this video that are going to tell you stuff that just factually isn't true. And there are so many organizations that are just spreading things that are just flat out lies, quite honestly. And to make money, to gain members, to gain momentum, to make money. There's, again, I wish we were a little bit more critical of, again, who we think the good guys are. Not saying that the good guys are the big makeup brands. Don't get it twisted. I'm just saying that one reason why I don't talk about cruelty-free makeup is because I know it doesn't mean what people think it means. And I do, as myself as a brand owner, ask questions. Let me see your certifications. Let me see all of those things that you need to see, safety and like testing and all of that, so that I am sure that what I am producing and what I'm putting out in the world is safe and fulfills the stamps that I put on my products. But I wonder how long it's gonna take until we actually start talking about cruelty-free in a nuanced and factually correct way, because there are definitely animal testing going on in the world, but it doesn't work the way that it's being talked about right now with beauty, not in the at all. And yeah, that was my short answer on that. Do I wish that we didn't have any animal testing in anything? Yeah. I do know that there's a lot of science, though. There wouldn't be a COVID vaccine without animal testing. Like, how do you think that happened? So I do hope that one day we can have a more nuanced discussion about this. And since right now I know we're not able, and I know there's so much propaganda going around, I just make my decision based on the knowledge that I have. And that's what I have about that. I am actually gonna go and have lunch with my hubby in this really beautiful makeup look. I hope you're having a great day. I am gonna have a 6 palettes, 6 indie looks coming really soon, actually. Probably the next video you see on my channel, I think. And I hope you're having a great beginning of the week, and I will see you soon in the video. Bye.